Alright, Shalom, Shalom. All praises, honor, and glory is forever due unto Abanawa, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rechaha Kodash. Double honor is due unto the venerable apostles, elders, and elder bishops at the Great Millstone GMS who rule well and who teach well. Salutations goes out to the elect. Alright, Abaratazar, which means Father willing. So, Father willing, this lesson is edifying. So, yeah, man, war talks. Okay, Bible prophecy kicking off. Very excited in the spirit, man. Alright, very exciting. And we'll go to the book of 1 Samuel chapter 9 and verse 9. Okay, because it's, we've got to be visionaries in this thing. Alright, 1 Samuel chapter 9 and verse 9 reads, Before time in Israel, when a man went to inquire of God, thus he spake, Come, and let us go to the seer, for he that is now called a prophet was before time called a seer. You see, and our ancient forefathers saw visions concerning the times that we're currently living in right now. Okay, they saw the nuclear destruction. Apostle John saw that. Okay, all right. Prophet Jeremiah saw that. Isaiah, all right. So on and so forth. Okay, all right. Apostle John saw, people getting karagmad. All right, with the RFID micro chip. Okay, all right. The very end. We're in the very end of this world in the sense of the Greek word aion, which means a time period or age of rulership. All right, pursuant to the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24 verse 3. Okay, and the prophets were visionaries, and they could vision in their mind, and the prophecies that were going to take place. Okay, all right. And in ancient times, a prophet was called a seer. All right. But of course, we're obviously at the end of this man's, system, this man's kingdom. All right. That being E, who is the Caucasian man, the red Hebrew E, the so-called WHITEMAN. Okay, that's him. And the so-called white man is not Japheth, for crying out loud. If that was the case, then who would be ruling right now? Okay. And it would not be the end of the world. Okay. And then we'd be going into another captivity after this, which of course would not make any sense whatsoever. Think, man. Common sense, no? So the so-called WHITEMAN, woman, boy and girl, are collectively and biblically known as Edomites. And we're at the end of their wicked society and wicked queendom. Okay. So yeah, these prophecies are playing out. All right. So America to cut off trade with Spain. Al Jazeera 8 hours ago. Spain balks at Trump's threat to cut off all trade over NATO. Iran stance. BBC. Trump threatens to halt trade with Spain over military base access 9 hours ago. China Daily HK 2 hours ago. Trump threatens to cut off all trade with Spain. Yeah, so yeah, the beast is hating the whore, man. Alright. Yeah. So these are the visions that the Apostle John saw on the Isle of Patmos 2,000 years ago. Alright, Revelation 17 and 16 playing out. Okay, and Spain is one of the 10 horns mentioned in the book of Revelation chapter 13 and Revelation chapter 17, that we read about. Alright, and Spain does not have intercontinental ballistic missiles, but it is part of the 10 horns. Okay, let's go to the Gospel of Mark chapter 3. We'll start at verse 23. And it reads, And he, Yahushua, called them unto him, and said unto them in parables, How can Satan cast out Satan? And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but hath an end. So more tension and more division within the hegemony, so-called hegemony of E. So we're witnessing division amongst these various E nations and E countries, which is Yappa, beautiful. Okay. Yeah. Alright. So we're happy to see that, man. Okay. Let's go to the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 20, and it reads, "And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than its fellows." You see, this is why America's so-called allies in Europe cannot stand Donald Trump. They cannot stand America, period. Babylon the Great, all right? Cannot stand them at all. Because America's attitude towards, the allies is like, hey man, we're over you, and we can do whatever we like to do. Hence the reason why, these European nations are getting fed up of the USA. All right? Let's look into some of these articles. Reuters, 11 hours ago, Trump threatens to halt US trade with Spain over military bases, defense spending. So, US President Donald Trump threatened to impose a full US trade embargo on Spain on Tuesday after the European and NATO ally refused to let the US military use its bases for missions linked to strikes on Iran. Yeah. Spain has been terrible, Trump told reporters during a meeting with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, adding that he had told Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to cut off all dealings with Spain. "We're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain," he added. The US relocated 15 aircraft, including refueling tankers, from the Rota and Moron military bases in southern Spain, after the country's socialist leadership said it would not allow them to be used to attack Iran. Trump again referenced Spain's refusal to heed US calls for all NATO members to spend 5% of their gross domestic product on defense, and added, "Spain has absolutely nothing that we need." Wow. Okay. Yeah, jeez. See that? Alright. That's some Reuters, 11 hours ago. Al Jazeera. Spain has said the US should be mindful of international law and bilateral trade agreements with the European Union after US President Donald Trump threatened to cut off all trade with the country for refusing to let the US military use its bases for missions linked to strikes on Iran. "We have the necessary resources to contain the possible impact on the trade embargo by the US," the Spanish government said in a statement on Tuesday. The US must comply with international law and bilateral EU-US trade agreements, it added. After the United States and JJ attacked Iran on Saturday, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez condemned the attacks as a breach of international law. He called for dialogue to end the war on Iran, saying that, open quote, "one can oppose a hateful regime and, at the same time, oppose an unjustified and dangerous military intervention," end quote. On Monday, Spanish Minister of Foreign Affairs, José Manuel Albares, said Madrid would not allow the country's military bases, which are jointly operated by the US and Spain, but are under Spanish sovereignty, to be used for attacks on Iran. Okay, and I'm sure there'll be more updates regarding this. Alright, but things are unfolding, man. We're in March as well. Just, 3 months into the year, 2026, the year of agents, apostates, and sellouts, coined by Elder Apostle Tahar. Okay, things are hotting up. It's great, man. Things are moving quick. Alright. That's what we want. That's what we like. Okay. Let's go to the book of Revelation, chapter 17, and verse 16, and it reads, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore is America, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai shall be fulfilled." You see that? European countries that do possess nuclear missiles, such as Britain, France, and more. Alright? And when World War III escalates to a hot nuclear war, they will be involved in aiding the destruction of America as well, because the US allies will turn on them to fulfill Bible prophecy. Okay? Alright? Facts. In fact, I'm going to ask ChatGPT European countries that currently possess Uh, European countries that currently possess nuclear missiles. Sometimes chat can lie, you know. Yep, France number 1, United Kingdom number 2. Oh, other European countries do not have their own nuclear weapons. Sorry, made a mistake. But some host US nuclear weapons as part of NATO agreements, which I'm sure they will do. They would do. I believe they would do. Other European countries do not have their own nuclear weapons, right? But some host US nuclear weapons as part of NATO arrangements. Like Belgium, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, and Turkey host US nuclear bombs under NATO nuclear sharing. These are technically under US control, not sovereignly owned by these countries. Alright. So in terms of national possession, only France and the UK truly have nuclear missiles. Okay. Alright, stand corrected. So lucky for that. Alright. And Spain is also part of NATO, alright? When you look at Trump, he looks hella orange. How strong is Spain, really? Military strength. Alright, Spain has modern professional military, but it is regional rather than globally reach. Key points: personnel, 120,000 active military members and 75,000 reserves. Budget, around 18 to 20 billion euros per year, which is moderate by European standards. Much smaller than France, UK, or Germany. Right, capabilities: NATO, standard army, navy, and air force. Air force, modern fighters like the Eurofighter Typhoon. Navy includes amphibious assault ships, frigates, and submarines, but no nuclear-powered vessels. Spain does not have its own nuclear arsenal, alright? So it does not have its own nuclear arsenal and hosts no nuclear weapons on its territory. In NATO terms, Spain is a reliable middle power, capable but not a top-tier strategic player like France or the UK. And then economic strength, 14th largest economy in the world, GDP nominal, and the 5th largest in the EU. So GDP 1.5 trillion nominal, right? Strong sectors: tourism, renewable energy, agriculture, automotive, and aerospace. And weaknesses: high unemployment, 12 to 13%, public debt, and dependence on global trade flows. Economic strength supports military modernization but limits how far Spain can project power globally, right? Geopolitical influence. So it wields regional influence in Europe, North Africa, and Latin America. Yeah, historical and cultural ties. Alright. Strategically, Spain's location, Mediterranean and Atlantic, is valuable for NATO and European security. It's not a nuclear power, not a global military heavyweight, but economically and politically influential within Europe and the Mediterranean. Okay. So yeah, I'd like to see what different articles say. BBC. If I will go on China Daily. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer told Parliament, let's see, on Monday that Britain is not joining the US JJ offensive strikes on Iran. Merz told Trump in the Oval Office on Tuesday that Germany hopes the ongoing US JJ war against Iran will come to an end as soon as possible. Merz is the first foreign leader to meet Trump in person since the United States, and the Small Hats launched a massive military campaign against Iran early Saturday morning. trade embargo, the Spanish government said on Tuesday that it has the necessary resources to contain the potential impact of a trade embargo after Trump threatened to cut trade ties with Spain, according to Spanish media reports. Global Times 5 hours ago. By the way, I'm not happy with the UK either, Trump said. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with. Yeah, man, it's real. Yeah, man. European E. They can't stand American E at all. Let's go to the book of the prophet Daniel, Old Testament, chapter 4, start verse 41. Was it 41? Oh, sorry. Daniel chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2 verse 41 reads, And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay, and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, and as of the toes of the feet were part of iron, and of part clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with miry clay. Right, that kingdom referring to the last leg of the Roman Empire, which is the time we're living in right now, because ancient Rome has been, revived and brought back to life in the form of NATO, the EU, with America spearheading that hegemony. All right, great division within this empire, all leading to the downfall of E. Okay. Yeah. See that? So yeah, this is just a quick World War III news update, pertaining to Bible prophecy, of course, in the news. Okay, so we're happy to see the downfall of our enemy, man. Alright, we certainly do not have much time left in this queendom whatsoever. Alright, so in closing, Kal Halal Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rakah Kodash, and Abad Babal.